Hello, class. This is Trent Speck, and I'm here in Garden City, Kansas, talking about Module 12 for EDL 850 and tort liability. Um, Interesting topic, and I learned a lot from this. I have 5 cases, and we'll get through it here in a sec. But what exactly is tort liability? Tort liability is a civil wrong that causes someone else to suffer harm or loss resulting with legal actions where the person is responsible for this act. It doesn't have to be physically either, it can be mentally. So we could have added that right here, physical or mental health. Okay. If it happens at the school event, or during school hours, schools can be held liable for the results or the consequences. And some different examples of tort include assault and battery, defamation, false imprisonment, negligence, which is probably the most common, and then more. So my first case study is John Fischler. He's a PE teacher in, I believe, California. He taught elementary, and the court order, or where the parents sued, was because a PE teacher was supposedly touching kids and was called a perv by these different two young ladies. So California ruled in favor of the teacher after there wasn't enough evidence. Girls' stories weren't correct, and he was compensated $363,000. So this would be an example of defamation, actually towards a teacher and not towards the students. But this is an example. So defamation is the result of losing a reputation, or etc. So my school would probably react the same way and take the same measures. He was, I think, put on temporary leave or something while it was going on. It is, in our society, it is sad that you're guilty before proven innocent sometimes. Make sure that you're careful with what you say about people and check facts. Teachers need to be aware of this. So that would be my proactive steps, is not putting yourself in the wrong situation, especially as a guide teacher. I think our school does a good job of this. Whenever you are in the classroom with one-on-one, you need to make sure that there's windows or the door is open. For me, I always leave the door open unless I'm having a quick conversation, where a quick conversation would be like a minute where I'm talking to a student. But anything longer than that minute, I want the door open. If I don't want kids to hear, I'll pull them away from the door so I can talk to them real quick. But that's kind of just making sure, preventing stuff like that. Now, defamation is damaging the good reputation of someone. I put this liar, liar, pants on fire, because the girls' stories didn't match up and there wasn't enough evidence. Kind of rude, but that was what the court case came down to. My next one, or number 2 out of the 5, is Glacier versus Emporio Unified School District. This one's kind of sad, in a sense, where two young boys are playing, and they're playing tag or soccer, or I believe tag, and the student was running away from his friend, ran into the street, and a car hit him. It occurred before school hours. It was unsupervised, and court ruled in favor of the school. Couple different reasons for this. Simply because there wasn't anybody on or watching, so they couldn't really consider it negligence because it happened before school hours. Now, this might have changed just looking at our school. And this is elementary more than anything, but if you ride a bike or do something like that, where you're riding your bike to school, the biggest thing for me is whenever the buses arrive, that's kind of when school starts for me. Now, that's not official. I understand that. I know more official would be like 7:55 or 8 o'clock is when our school district starts. But for young kids, I think it's important where they, especially, maybe late summer, early fall, or late spring, early summer, before the school is out. I think it's important to make sure you're watching those kids that get to school early and are on the playgrounds, because that tends to be what happens, is when no one's watching right before school and something happens where someone falls off of monkey bars or something like that, etc. So it can happen, and it probably will happen. Not saying at our school, but sometime we'll hear an incident like that. So my school would probably react the same. We have students here at the high school early, or at Holcomb High School early. So it's just being aware and being conscious. Proactive, be aware of the potential of things happening before school on the property. Biggest thing for me is for teachers to be aware of possible negligence in school during hours and outside of school hours if they see anything. Be in their correct spots. Now, an example of this is making sure that you account for your students. We had an incident in my school. I won't go into it because I have students following me on YouTube channel. They found me, so if they're watching this, do your homework. But besides that, I think the most important thing is just being aware of where students are. We went with agendas, and the kids do not like them whatsoever. But we've had too many incidences of... Sorry, I think this froze. Whoops. We had too many incidences of where kids would roam and they would be gone for 10, 15 minutes, whether they left school property or whatever. This can be, if they leave school property and they get in an accident, that's kind of on us. And kids don't think of things like that, and teachers might not think of things like that too until they've taken this class, because it is our responsibility to be aware of where our students are. So the next one is Frame versus Comex, 1995. Student was being disruptive in class. So what happened was Comex was a teacher at a private school. He was in class and it wasn't his class actually. He was being a substitute teacher, and two students were being disruptive. He asked one to leave. That student left. Another one continued to be disruptive. He told the kid to leave. The kid kind of gave attitude, kind of got up from his chair slowly. This is when Comex grabbed Frame by the arm and pulled him out of the classroom. Before he got out of the classroom, though, he fell and hit his back on a podium, I believe, and left scratches and bruises on arm and back. Now, Frame's parents asked for Comex to be dismissed, and the principal told them they were going to do an investigation. Went to school board. They said no, there wasn't enough evidence, etc. Frame's parents filed a lawsuit of assault and battery. Court cleared Comex, though he used more force than needed, but it wasn't enough to convict him of assault and battery. For me, my school would probably, or wouldn't react the same. I feel like they would get rid of the teacher or put him on leave until the case was done. I think that's, 1995, a lot has happened since then, and you're looking at 22 years. I just feel like it's not the same as back then. But maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I am, but that's kind of my thought process on that. Proactive is train teachers and subs for situations like this, when students become too much where they aren't listening and are being disruptive. I think, and I'll talk about this more later, but I think it's important to set consequences or punishment with another teacher in the room, or maybe with a para or something like that. So it's not 1 versus 20 kids, you have another adult in the room. And I think that's just looking after yourself and that's just where I'm at on that. I picked this picture right here, assault and battery. It's just a colorful picture. So I'll talk more about that later. The next one, the fourth one, is Flanagan versus Canton Central School District. So what happened was two kids, and I think this was around 5th or 6th grade is what I read. Two kids were involved in a fight in the locker room. The teacher was not around. What happened was Flanagan was pushed during PE class in the locker room. He suffered injuries that actually needed emergency surgery for his spleen. So it wasn't no small task. It wasn't just a regular fist fight. There was an emergency when he fell, and I think either into a locker or into concrete or etc. Parents sued the school district for negligence since the teacher wasn't in the locker room with the students. Court ruled this wasn't the case because no prior knowledge was given for the aggressive acts of these two boys. What they were pretty much saying was the school wasn't aware of these two students being maybe in aggressive acts or not liking each other or having run-ins before this, so it wasn't the case. My school would feel the same way unless prior knowledge was given to the teachers. Teachers don't know what boy or when boys or what boys are going to fight. It could be a daily thing, to be honest. And um, proactive measures for me is make sure students are aware of being in the right spot during the right time. Um, you know, I don't fully believe that teachers should have to go through or in the locker room while kids are changing, and that gets into the whole sexual harassment thing. I mean, that's not something you want to go down either, that road. So my suggestion would be just make sure um, maybe go in right away, right after the class, when before they started changing, or knock in, making sure that they're kind of dressed, even if it's a guy teacher and boys in the locker room. I would just make sure, ahead of time. Um, and just make sure you're in the right spot, whether that means in the hallways, whether it means lunch duty or after school when you're supposed to watch kids leave the school district, etc. Just make sure you're on the right spot, because the time that you're not is the time that something will probably happen. So um, always write down information also. If two boys have a little run-in and you don't know if it's resolved or not resolved, always write it down. I think that's important, so you're covering your back. I'm sorry, internet is being slow. Okay, and last one. Sorry. Thenover is Tanahashi Unified School District. It's in Kansas. It's Eastern. It's in Indiana. It's pretty cool. So, anyways, I picked the Kansas one because we do live in Kansas. Overview: Kid was extremely bullied and called all these names perceived to be on his sexual orientation. Bullied in school and while at athletic event. Teacher supposedly heard about kid being bullied and laughed at the comment that was being made and didn't discipline the other student. Court ruled in favor of this kid and was awarded $250,000. Biggest takeaway on this is this would be considered defamation. Hopefully my school wouldn't let this happen. I think we are trained a lot, and this is more recently since I was, when I was in high school, 2005, etc., to 2009, we had a lot of bullying seminars. It kind of got repetitive, but at the same time, it's definitely necessary. Even today's, how much cyberbullying is going on and bullying in person and it's uncalled for. So proactive steps would be to make sure teachers and subs are aware of bullying techniques and how to prevent that and educate them on this topic, because it is broad, but yet it happens all the time, and it's probably the number one cause of problems in schools, to be honest. And biggest takeaway is of teachers, or for teachers to be aware of certain problems. This one went under sexual harassment, defamation, and negligence. So what I learned, biggest takeaways I learned was perform your duties, okay? Make sure you're in the right spot at the right time. Even if it seems boring or repetitive, that's yours, okay? And these are the 10 that were on the topic. I'm not going to hit on all of them, just the more important ones for me in my school district, I feel. Keep private information private, and that's a law that we just learned on our last couple assignments, and that's very important. Keep written discipline reports. We have a discipline form where we write down what happens and what measures need to be taken, and etc. I think that's very important, where we can go back and look at a child's or a student's history and all that. So punish in pairs. Don't be the same one, or don't be by yourself on certain or during certain times where it could be a one-on-one situation or 1-on-3 where you're the only teacher and you have 3 students, because you don't want to play that game. So just make sure someone else is aware of this and is in the room when you're punishing. So, and do what is best for the student or students. Okay, if one student is getting bullied, hey, you need to stand up to the person doing it and make sure no one else is continuing to do this. So here are my references, and thank you for watching. Like I said, I learned a lot and I definitely enjoyed it. Thank you.